What's going on, you guys? I'm as always Mr. Grimreaper 512, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Red Alert Podcast. And we are live here in my home in beautiful Kyle, Texas. It is 9:39 a.m. in the morning on March 30th, and we're gonna talk about some stuff today. Um, and this one is a very special episode because I wanted to talk about my top 20 greatest announcers in the history of professional wrestling. Now, I got the idea to do this whole thing from Bruce Blitz after watching his video, after watching his top 10 video for the greatest announcers of professional wrestling. So I figured I might as well make a special Red Alert podcast edition of it. And I apologize in advance. Y'all guys cannot see me at this moment. I am recording this as we speak on the big computer in my living room. But where I always record stuff at. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about this. I wanted to talk about my top 20 greatest announcers of professional wrestling. Now I'm going to go for 20 from 20 to today. For now, I'm going to do this in two parts because this is going to be a very long video. I'm going to do part 1 is going to be 20 to 11, and then part 2 is going to be 10 to 1. So, starting first with my number 20 pick, I have to say that Chris Kloss, I got to pick Chris Kloss as the number 20 pick. He is one of the greatest announcers that I've ever seen in my life. Chris Kloss, as many of you know, is an XPW, was a former XPW announcer back when he was working with Rob Black and Larry Rivera. And Larry Rivera is one of my another one that I'm gonna put on this. So it's gonna be kind of a tie between Larry Rivera and Chris Kloss. I love deathmatch wrestling. I think deathmatch wrestling is great, and I love every minute of it. And y'all guys are probably wondering why Chris Kloss. Well, Chris Kloss brought his A game when he was in XPW. Chris Kloss brought what many would figured as panache or finesse when it comes to doing professional wrestling announcing. And I like the fact that he does what he needed to do with what was set with him and stuff like that. So I think that's why I picked Chris Kloss as number with Larry Rivera as an honorable mention. That's why I picked Chris Kloss as number 20. Now I'm gonna pick number 19 is also a deathmatch wrestling announcer from CZW. I have to pick trying to remember his name. Shit, I can't remember his name right now, but it's at the tip of my tongue. Um, hmm. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to figure this out here. Because they have an announcer. They had an announcer, and I liked him in CCW. um, trying to figure this out here. Um, I'm trying to remember what his name was. I don't even remember what his freaking name was for the life of me. But he was a CZW. It was him and another guy that were CZW announcers. Um, Hold on, you guys. Oh, there it is, right there. His name was Eric Garjula. I have to, and uh, it was him, and if I remember correctly, it was him and John House that they used to do they used to do professional wrestling stuff, you know. And I love his stuff. I love how he did his. I love how he did, how he would announce stuff. I love how Eric Arjula would announce in CZW. Both him and John House had to be the greatest announcers in the history of professional wrestling. Um, because of their deathmatch style, because of the way they did things, and CZW, how John House would say, somebody call 911. You know what I mean? When something happened. But I think Garjula, I'm gonna put John House in with Garjula because because this announce team, Garjula and John House were great with each other. You know, they were kind of the CZW version of Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler, and I loved that aspect between them and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I pick John House and Eric Garjula as my 19th pick for the greatest announcers of all time. So the next one I'm gonna pick in this list, uh, my next announcer that I'm going to pick in this list, he's not necessarily um the next one I'm going to have to pick. I'm thinking, who is the next guy that I can pick as one of the greatest announcers of all time? Um, so I'm guessing my 17th, well, yeah, my 18th pick. Um, I would have to give it. I would have to give it to Paul Heyman. Now, you guys are wondering, well, why Paul Heyman? Paul Heyman was a Paul Heyman was a miserable bastard in ECW. He didn't start out that way in ECW. When he started out as Paul E. Dangerously. So I think Paul Heyman deserves the number 18 spot on my list of the 20 greatest announcers of all time because um, because he did bring his A game. He did bring his A game when it came to professional wrestling. And I loved how he used him and JR, we used to bounce ideas off each other. They would used to bounce stuff off each other. Back in the OWF. Um, and I liked it. I thought that JR was really good as I thought that Paul Heyman was really good as an announcer. Now he's Brock Lesnar's advocate. Um, been that way since 2002. But when you think about it for a second, he is the best at what he can do. he shined as good as he possibly could as the boss of ECW. Um, but yeah, I think that Paul Heyman deserves the number 18 spot because he lacks what he does good. He kind of lacks in a way. Now I don't want you guys getting mad at me or anything like that, or getting pissed off at me because I put him down at number 18 because I think Paul Heyman deserves. I think Paul Heyman deserves a little bit more credit than what he gets. In my opinion, in my opinion, he deserves a little bit more credit than what he gets. But that's just me. Um, but yeah, I think Paul Heyman deserves to be in the number 18 spot. Um, I know it's so far down. I know it's so far down to the list, but it's hard. It's hard coming up with these on the spot. So, um, now we go from Paul Heyman to another guy that I think had a lot of. We go from Paul Heyman to another guy that I think could have had a lot of more better ideas than what he did, and that's Mauro Ranallo. I think I'm gonna put Mauro Ranallo in this in number 17, um, because he is a good announcer. I don't think that he could have been a lot higher, or he could have been an honorable mention. But when it comes to professional wrestling, and this guy comes from the boxing world. This guy comes from a boxing standpoint. So I gotta say that Mauro Ronaldo was a good announcer. Um, was he the best? Probably not. Uh, I would have to go with him simply because he had a lot of cojones. When that whole thing with Bradshaw went down, he stood his ground. You know what I mean? He didn't let anybody pick on him. He didn't let anybody. He didn't run away from all the bullshit that was going on. Um, but yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel when it comes to this one. When it comes to this. When it comes to Mauro Ronaldo, is I think he's a good announcer, but he kind of lacks that finesse. Um, he does go crazy when I like it when he says "Mamma Mia" and all that. I don't really watch WWE anymore all that much because I don't like PG crap anymore. But as far as everything else, his time in NXT, um, when he started with the company, I would listen to him announce, and he had a really really good range. He had really good ideas, but it kind of sort of fell flat a little bit. Not that much, a little bit. Um, but yeah, so I pick Mauro Ronaldo as my 17th pick. So we're gonna go from Mauro Ronaldo to another guy, um, that deserves a lot more credit than what he gets. Um, when it comes to mic work, um, when it comes to being on the mic and when it comes to mic work, I have to say I have to put Cornette as number 16. I have to put Jim Cornette. He was the backbone. He was the backbone of guys like Vader, guys like Mick Foley, uh, Owen Hart, the Hart Foundation, Yokozuna. Um, but during his time in the WWF as an announcer, he was a good announcer. He had the nuts to do what he had to do. as far as everything else goes. But I would have to say that Jim Cornette would be number 16. Cornette was a good announcer, was a really, really, really good announcer at that moment in time. During his time during his time in the WWF, and I kind of wish that they could have made him a more genuine announcer than what he got, what he ended up getting. Cornette is Cornette. When you listen to Cornette, he doesn't shit you at all. He doesn't screw with you. When it comes to Cornette, he tells you the God's honest truth, and that's the whole point. You know what I mean? But as far as everything else goes, I think Cornette deserves to be on this list as one of the greatest announcers in the history of professional wrestling. Um, but yeah, okay, so we go from Cornette to another guy that had his time to shine in professional wrestling. Um, I would have to. I'm trying to think. There's a lot of play-by-play guys, but I'm gonna see here. Okay, so I have to see this here. I have to talk about this simply because he needs to be talked about. Um, and here's how I feel about this guy in particular. In um, I want to talk about not. I want to talk about Kevin Kelly. Let's talk about Kevin Kelly because I wanted to put him on this list too. Um, so yeah, my number 15, I believe it is now, is Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly, of course, was a former WWF announcer. He was a former WWF backstage announcer. He was also a former Ring of Honor. I don't know if he's still working for Ring of Honor or what he's working for. But Kevin Kelly. Um, I liked his announcing style. How he used to bring himself to the fold when he was announcing when he was announcing. Um, Sorry guys, it's kind of hard to talk. It's kind of hard to talk about all these announcers without somebody to bounce off of, you know. So I'm trying my best to do what I can. I'm trying my best to do this list. But as for Kevin Kelly, I think Kevin Kelly deserves his time on Sunday Night Heat with Michael Cole. I'm gonna say that Michael Cole too was somewhat good as an announcer, but I don't think so. But Kevin Kelly shined as the lead announcer for Sunday Night Heat, and I used to love watching that show a lot. Um, um, mm, but yeah, as far as everything else goes, I think Kevin Kelly was a good announcer. I think, but let me see. Um, okay, so I did. Okay, so I think I'm at 14 now. I think. Um, and I'm gonna put a legend in this one. I'm gonna put a legend in number four as number 14. Uh, Lord Alfred Hayes. Now many of you know. Now many of you know. Back in the old days of the WWF, there was a British guy by the name of Lord Alfred Hayes. one of the greatest that, in my public opinion, one of the greatest backstage guys you've ever seen in your life. Uh, I remember watching um, wrestling. I remember watching wrestling very early on as a kid, around maybe like '94 or something like that. And I remember back when Gorilla Monsoon and Lord Alfred Hayes used to call commentary. Used to call play by play in the old WWF. And then I remember also too, if I remember correctly, I think he used to call Tuesday Night Titans. There was a couple of other ones I think they used to call with Gorilla Monsoon. So, but as far as else goes, I think um, Lord Alfred Hayes deserves a little bit more credit than he needs to. Just like a bunch of these other announcers too. But but yeah, I have to say that Lord Alfred Hayes is number 14 on my list. Um, okay, so number 13, because we're almost about done here. Number 14, I mean, yeah, yeah, number 13 actually would be trying to think. Uh, okay, so I'm putting him on this list not because I think he's a good announcer, but I think he's a miserable bastard. This is just gonna be, well, actually, yeah. Um, let's t- uh, let's okay. I want to give an honorable mention to one of the most hated assholes in the history of professional wrestling, Mark Madden. Now, Mark Madden, I hate this miserable son of a bitch, but I'm gonna still put him on this list because he had that villainous side to him. He's still a piece of crap for what he did in WCW. But he's still a good announcer, even though I feel still that he's a piece of crap. But I'm just only gonna give him an honorable mention. I'm not gonna give him anything else. But my number 13 pick is Joe Gertner. Now, the reason why I put Joel Gertner as number 13 on my list um, is because he is the most hilarious dude you've ever seen in your entire life. I loved I love how Joe Gertner would always mess with you. He was one of the he was not only was he a good heel in professional wrestling, but he was a good talker. Uh, and I picked Joe Gertner because he would always come up with these great freaking punchlines to screw with you, to mess with you, to and stuff like that. But yeah, I picked Joe Gertner as one of the greatest announcers in the history of professional wrestling. Now we go from Joe Gertner from number 13 to number 12. Number 12, I'm gonna pick JB. I'm gonna pick Jeremy Borash. Jeremy Borash is not uh not the greatest, but one of the most notorious announcers in the history of professional wrestling. I love JB style. I love how he would not only was he a play by play guy, but he was one hell of a good announcer. As a he was one hell of a good ring announcer when he would when he would announce the wrestlers to the ring in TNA, and I love JB. I think JB is a good announcer, and I think he deserves to be on this list as the top greatest announcers in the history of professional wrestling. So, I think, and I think that was 12. I think I'm going to 11 now. Um, I have no idea. I lost count. But anyway, okay, so I think 11 or something like that. I'm at 11, I think. I'm going to have to go with Shane McMahon. I'm going to have to go with Shane McMahon as number 11. The top announcers. He gets his stuff from his dad, from Vince, who is also in the list. Spoilers, by the way. He gets his stuff from his dad. Um, but he does a little bit more different than his dad. Shane McMahon not only is a good announcer, not only is a good talker in the ring, but he is a good talker outside of the ring. Um, Especially how he puts himself, he puts himself in jeopardy. He puts his body on the line. You know, as one of the boys and stuff like that. And not to mention that this dude can talk his ass off. So yeah, I picked Shane McMahon as number 11, which I think I'm at. Whatever. But anyway, yeah, I picked Shane McMahon as number 11 because he is the greatest announcer in the history of professional wrestling, bar none. Um, and I think that he he gets a lot of credit. He gets a lot of crap for the way he talks, but I think the way he talks is great. It's really, really good. So I have to put uh, Shane McMahon as number 10, as number 11 actually, for the top announcers of all time. So that's gonna be it for now. I think I've done 11 already. I think I've already done all the first 10 that I needed to do. So yeah, so I'm gonna give you guys uh, my next 10 list, my top 10 list. Um, here in just a few minutes. So just keep in mind, yeah. So with that, I'm gonna say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Actually, since you guys are listening to this, and that's gonna be it for right now. I'm as always Mr. Grimreaper 512, and I'll see you next time on the Red Alert Podcast. Peace.